1.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Ankerstar Wealth Market Update. I'm your host, Allison Ankerstar, and today we'll be talking about the crypto bounce after President Biden's executive order, the highlights from yesterday's Apple event, and lastly, why the futures are up big this morning. But before we begin, as a reminder, this is a financial education presentation and should not be construed as personal financial advice. Full disclaimer information is available at ankerstarwealth.com. Good morning, Steve. Bitcoin is up 8% this morning and powered higher after President Biden's executive order yesterday. Is now the time to invest in crypto?
Allison, and thank you for that introduction. That was an interesting announcement from President Biden yesterday, and really, you know, if you missed it, it didn't say a tremendous amount, but it is lending some legitimacy to the crypto world. So I believe, if I understand the strategy of the U.S. here, is to, instead of fighting it and trying to ban it, which would have been an option, is to actually lend some structure to it. So when you really look at the headlines here, attempts to address the lack of framework, I'm on this third paragraph here, for the development of cryptocurrencies, which could leave the industry behind the rest of the world. So the concern there is that crypto is legitimized everywhere else, and it's not here in the U.S., and the U.S. dorks around long enough to where we kind of miss the boat, or the ship sails to a certain extent without us. So I like the move. I don't necessarily know offhand, where crypto is going. I can't predict the future or the end of the story, but certainly when you look at the crypto across the top here, Bitcoin up 8%, Ethereum up 6%. Here's what I believe is, if you believe in crypto, then invest in it in some manner. You can do that through the coin wallet, which is too painful for me. I do it through the open market. If you're a client of mine, we're in a couple of proxies for the specific two cryptos out there. So that's what I would say. If you don't believe, or if you're hesitant, or you think it's BS, then don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And you just have to admit that that you missed it, if you will. Okay, so that's really where I like the idea of crypto. I do understand that there is risk in the U.S. dollar being manipulated more so than it is already. But I'm not ready to throw the towel in on the U.S. government either. But I do think when you look at the price specifically of Bitcoin at 40,000, in the history of the Bitcoin of running up to 60,000. Basically late last year, and then kind of settling in. If you buy in here, here's what I will say. If you buy in here, you hold. You don't sell just because it drops 5, 10, 15, 20%. If you believe, you buy. If you don't, then you don't. So in conclusion, I think it's a good entry point for Bitcoin, and I think it has a pretty good chance of powering higher from here.
Next, Apple's peak performance event yesterday revealed several new products. Will this move the needle on the stock?
Well, here's Apple.com, and here's the things that they released yesterday. And of course, the presentation, I caught almost all of it. I was not late, but I got back from a meeting, so I missed the intro portion. But yeah, the new Mac Studio and Studio Display. If you have a money tree in the backyard that has unlimited dollars hanging from it, this pretty expensive stuff, but pretty impressive as well. So there's your Studio and your Mac Studio. They also announced the new iPad Air, which I worked off of. I've had both the iPad Air and the MacBook Air, and of course, the lightweight feature to them is pretty amazing. I have the new laptop now, and it's literally super heavy. It's kind of crazy. But it's got the Apple M1 chip, which was the big upgrade last time. But certainly those are out and available. I think this is the one that will actually be the most attractive to everybody, is the iPhone SE. So you have the new chip, superstar camera, the same best camera ever, and battery life. So when you really look at targeting the masses that maybe don't want to pay $1,000 for an iPhone, but could pay, $400 or so. When you think what's important, I want the camera and I want the battery life. So if you think of, younger folks, camera, battery life, really that's what they're looking for. So I think Apple nails it here. If you go to the actual pricing, but it's small print here, but really $429 is kind of your entry level. $479 if you want what I would call normal storage with the 128 gig. Just a couple of basic colors, black, white, and red. So really, they were looking at marketing this to the masses, and we shall see if it actually takes off here. So that's really what I think. Is it going to move the needle on the stock? Well, hard to tell, but I think Apple has been crushed unnecessarily. So when you look at it's bouncing this morning, but when you back out to a 1-year chart, if I can do that here, there we go. It's come in significantly from the run up to 180. It's sitting there down at 160. I think it's a screaming buy. So in sum, if you're looking for some Apple, I think it powers higher from here.
Last, the stock market futures are up big this morning with the Nasdaq over 2%. Does this mark the bottom in the market, or is it too soon to tell?
I think, the bottom of the market is kind of tough to call, and I'm not really in the business of calling the exact bottom, but I will tell you we are in the area of the bottom. That's my take on it. When you look at investing, you don't really try to pick the day, the hour to the second that is the bottom, because that's kind of a mythical quest, trying to find the unicorn sort of thing or the end of the rainbow. But what you do want to recognize is when you're getting into that zone of we're in the area of the bottom, and then that's when you start buying. You buy before the actual bottom, and you buy kind of through the bottom if you're have the luxury of doing so. I realize that many people are tapped out on cash and don't have that cash to buy, but if you do have the cash, this is when you want to kind of come in and take a look at buying. You don't buy all in one day. You don't just slam the money into the middle. You'll drive yourself crazy. But you do start nibbling on things like I'll pick up some Apple shares because of the big event. That's your catalyst for it to move higher. I'm bringing up the Think Pipes platform to kind of take a look at where we are. This is the S&P 500 1-year chart. Look all the way to the right. At the beginning of the year, we were at the high at 480. We dipped all the way down to this 416 level. But I will say, we're bouncing off of that area of resistance. And, this futures being up, in the S&P almost 2%. This morning puts us back at that 42.47. So it's going to be up in this area here, almost retracing the ugly day we had on Monday. So when you look at technical indicators, I don't trade off of technicals, but I do pay attention to them. They are way into the oversold land. And if you back up the chart, you can see when it goes into oversold territory, you generally see a bounce. Same thing with the other indicator that's down there. Those again are the RSI and the MACDs. So overall, I think that we are in the vicinity of the bottom. I think the Ukraine, Russia headlines are going to actually trend to get better. People have kind of settled into, okay, this is going on, and it's not dominating the headlines like it was. And maybe ceasefire talks continue and actually lead to something within a few weeks is my kind of take on that. So overall, and then we'll move on to the Federal Reserve and interest rates. But I think most of the bad news is baked in. So overall, I'm happy to buy in this area.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Please submit your questions as a comment through social media or directly to our email at vipservices@ankerstarwealth.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to get daily updates. That's all we have for today's show. I'm Allison Ankerstar, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.